crowned with the sickle and the wheaten sheaf, while autumn, nodding o'er the yellow plain, comes jovial on, the Doric reed once more, well pleased, I tune. Whate'er the wintry frost nitrous prepared, the various blossomed spring put in white promise forth, and summer's suns concocted strong rush boundless now to view. Full, perfect all, and swell my glorious theme. Onslow, the muse, ambitious of thy name, to grace, inspire, and dignify her song, would from the public voice thy gentle ear a while engage. Thy noble cares she knows, the patriot virtues that distend thy thought spread on thy front, and in thy bosom glow, while listening senates hang upon thy tongue, devolving through the maze of eloquence a roll of periods sweeter than her song. But she too pants for public virtue, she, though weak of power, yet strong in ardent will, whene'er her country rushes on her heart, assumes a bolder note, and fondly tries to mix the patriots with the poet's flame. When the bright virgin gives the beauteous days, and Libra weighs in equal scales the year, from heaven's high cope the fierce effulgence shook of parting summer, a serener blue, with golden light enlivened, wide invests the happy world. Attempered suns arise, sweet-beamed, and shedding oft through lucid clouds a pleasing calm, while broad and brown below extensive harvests hang the heavy head. Rich, silent, deep they stand, for not a gale rows its light billows o'er the bending plain. A calm of plenty, till the ruffled air falls from its poise and gives the breeze to blow. Rent is the fleecy mantle of the sky, the clouds fly different, and the sudden sun by fits effulgent gilds the illumined field, and black by fits the shadows sweep along. A gaily checkered, heart-expanding view, far as the circling eye can shoot around, unbounded tossing in a flood of corn. These are thy blessings. Industry, rough power, whom labour still attends, and sweat and pain, yet the kind source of every gentle art, and all the soft civility of life. Raiser of humankind, by nature cast, naked and helpless, out amid the woods and wilds, to rude inclement elements, with various seeds of art deep in the mind implanted, and profusely poured around materials infinite, but idle all. Still unexerted, in the unconscious breast slept the lethargic powers. Corruption still, voracious, swallowed what the liberal hand of bounty scattered o'er the savage year, and still the sad barbarian, roving, mixed with beasts of prey, or for his acorn meal fought the fierce tusky boar, a shivering wretch, aghast and comfortless, when the bleak north, with winter charged, let the mixed tempests fly, hail, rain, and snow, and bitter breathing frost. Then to the shelter of the hut he fled, and the wild season, sordid, pined away. For home he had not. Home is the resort of love, of joy, of peace, and plenty, where, supporting and supported, polished friends and dear relations mingle into bliss. But this the rugged savage never felt, e'en desolate in crowds, and thus his days rolled heavy, dark, and unenjoyed along, a waste of time, till industry approached, and roused him from his miserable sloth. His faculties unfolded, pointed out, where lavish nature, the directing hand of art demanded, showed him how to raise his feeble force by the mechanic powers to dig the mineral from the vaulted earth. On what to turn the piercing rage of fire, on what the torrent and the gathered blast, gave the tall ancient forest to his axe, taught him to chip the wood and hew the stone, till by degrees the finished fabric rose, tore from his libs the blood-polluted fur, and wrapped them in the woolly vestment warm, or Blyth in glossy silk and flowing lawn, with wholesome viands filled his tables, poured the generous glass around, inspired to wake the life-refining soul of decent wit, nor stopped at barren, bare necessity, but still advancing, bolder, led him on to pomp, to pleasure, elegance and grace, and breathing high ambition through his soul, set science, wisdom, glory in his view, and bade him be the lord of all below. Then, gathering men, their natural powers combined, and formed a public, to the general good submitting, aiming and conducting all. For this the patriot council met, the full, the free, the fairly respected whole. For this they planned the holy guardian laws, distinguished orders, animated arts, and with joint force oppression chaining, set imperial justice at the helm, yet still to them accountable, nor slavish dreamed that toiling millions must resign their weal and all the honey of their search to such as for themselves alone themselves have raised. Hence every form of cultivated life, in order, set, protected and inspired, into perfection wrought, uniting all, society grew numerous, high, polite, and happy. Nurse of art, the city reared in beauteous pride her tower-encircled head, and, stretching street on street by thousands, drew from twining woody haunts, or the tough yew to boughs soft straining, her aspiring sons. Then commerce brought into the public walk the busy merchant, the big warehouse built, raised the strong crane, choked up the loaded street with foreign plenty, and thy stream, O Thames, large, gentle, deep, majestic, king of floods, chose for his grand resort. On either hand, like a long wintry forest, groves of masts shot up their spires. The bellying sheet between possessed the breezy void. The sooty hulk steered sluggish on. The splendid barge along rowed regular to harmony. Around the boat, light skimming, stretched its oary wings, while deep the various voice of fervent toil from bank to bank increased, whence, ribbed with oak to bear the British thunder, black and bold, the roaring vessel rushed into the main. Then to the pillared dome, magnific, heaved its ample roof, and luxury within poured out her glittering stores, the canvas smooth, with glowing life protuberant to the view embodied rose. The statue seemed to breathe and soften into flesh beneath the touch of forming art. Imagination flushed. All is the gift of industry. Whate'er exalts, embellishes, and renders life delightful. Pensive winter, cheered by him, sits at the social fire, and happy hears the excluded tempest idly rave along. His hardened fingers deck the gaudy spring. Without him summer were an arid waste, nor to the autumnal months could thus transmit those full, mature, immeasurable stores that, waving round, recall my wandering song. Soon as the morning trembles o'er the sky, and, unperceived, unfolds the spreading day, before the ripened field the reapers stand, in fair array, each by the lass he loves, to bear the rougher part, and mitigate my nameless, gentle offices her toil. At once they stoop and swell the lusty sheaves, while through their cheerful band the rural talk, the rural scandal and the rural jest fly harmless, to deceive the tedious time, and steal unfelt the sultry hours away. Behind the master walks, builds up the shocks, and conscious, glancing oft on every side his sated eye, feels his heart heave with joy. The gleaners spread around, and here and there, spike after spike, their scanty harvest pick. Be not too narrow, husbandmen, but fling from the full sheaf with charitable stealth the liberal handful. Think, O grateful think, how good the God of harvest is to you, who pour abundance o'er your flowing fields, while these unhappy partners of your kind wide hover around you, like the fowls of heaven, and ask their humble dole. The various turns of fortune ponder, that your sons may want what now with hard reluctance faint you give. The lovely young Lavinia once had friends, and fortune smiled, deceitful on her birth. For in her helpless years, deprived of all, of every stay save innocence and heaven, she with her widowed mother, feeble, old, and poor, lived in a cottage, far retired among the windings of a woody vale, by solitude and deep surrounding shades, but more by bashful modesty concealed. Together thus they shunned the cruel scorn which virtue, sunk to poverty, would meet from giddy passion and low-minded pride, almost on nature's common bounty fed, like the gay birds that sung them to repose. Content and careless of tomorrow's fare, her form was fresher than the morning rose, when the dew wets its leaves, unstained and pure, as is the lily or the mountain snow. The modest virtues mingled in her eyes, still on the ground dejected, darting all their humid beams into the blooming flowers, or when the mournful tale her mother told, or what her faithless fortune promised once, thrilled in her thought, they, like the dewy star of evening, shone in tears. And native grace sat fair proportioned on her polished limbs, veiled in a simple robe, their best attire beyond the pomp of dress, for loveliness needs not the foreign aid of ornament, but is, when unadorned, adorned the most. Thoughtless of beauty, she was beauty's self, recluse amid the close embowering woods, as in the hollow breast of Apennine, beneath the shelter of encircling hills, a myrtle rises far from human eye, and breathes its balmy fragrance o'er the wild. So flourished, blooming, and unseen by all, the sweet Lavinia, till at length, compelled by strong necessity's supreme command, with smiling patience in her looks, she went to glean Palaemon's fields. The pride of swains, Palamon was, the generous and the rich, who led the rural life in all its joy and elegance, such as Arcadian song transmits from ancient uncorrupted times, when tyrant custom had not shackled man. But free to follow nature was the mode. He then, his fancy with autumnal scenes amusing, chanced beside his reaper train to walk, when poor Lavinia drew his eye. Unconscious of her power, and turning quick with unaffected blushes from his gaze, he saw her charming, but he saw not half the charms her downcast modesty concealed. That very moment love and chaste desire sprung in his bosom, to himself unknown. For still the world prevailed, and its dread laugh, which scarce the firm philosopher can call, should his heart own a gleaner to the field, and thus in secret to his soul he sighed. What pity that so delicate a form, by beauty kindled, where enlivening sense and more than vulgar goodness seem to dwell, should be devoted to the rude embrace of some indecent clown. She looks, methinks, of old Acasto's line, and to my mind recalls that patron of my happy life, from whom my liberal fortune took its rise, now to the dust gone down, his houses, lands, and once fair-spreading family dissolved. 'Tis said that in some lone obscure retreat, urged by remembrance sad and decent pride, far from those scenes which knew their better days, his aged widow and his daughter live, whom yet my fruitless search could never find. Romantic wish, would this the daughter were, when, strict inquiring from herself, he found she was the same, the daughter of his friend. O bountiful Acasto, who can speak the mingled passions that surprised his heart, and through his nerves in shivering transport ran, then blazed his smothered flame, avowed and bold, and as he viewed her ardent o'er and o'er, love, gratitude, and pity wept at once. Confused and frightened at his sudden tears, her rising beauties flushed a higher bloom, and thus Palamon, passionate and just, poured out the pious rapture of his soul. And art thou then Acasto's dear remains, she whom my restless gratitude has sought so long in vain? O heavens, the very same, the softened image of my noble friend, alive his every look, his every feature more elegantly touched, sweeter than spring, thou sole surviving blossom from the root that nourished up my fortune. Say, where, in what sequestered desert, hast thou drawn the kindest aspect of delighted heaven? Into such beauty spread, and blown so fair, though poverty's cold wind and crushing rain beat keen and heavy on thy tender years. Oh, let me now into a richer soil transplant thee safe, where vernal suns and showers diffuse their warmest, largest influence, and of my garden be the pride and joy. Ill it befits thee, oh, it ill befits Acasto's daughter, his, whose open stores, though vast, were little to his ampler heart. The father of a country, thus to pick the very refuse of those harvest fields, which from his bounteous friendship I enjoy. Then throw that shameful pittance from thy hand, but ill applied to such a rugged task. The fields, the master, all, my fair, are thine. If to the various blessings which thy house has on me lavished thou wilt add that bliss, that dearest bliss, the power of blessing thee. Here ceased the youth, yet still his speaking eye expressed the sacred triumph of his soul, with conscious virtue, gratitude, and love, above the vulgar joy divinely raised. Nor waited he reply, won by the charm of goodness irresistible, and all in sweet disorder lost. She blushed consent. The news immediate to her mother brought, while, pierced with anxious thought, she pined away the lonely moments for Lavinia's fate. Amazed, and scarce believing what she heard, joy seized her withered veins, and one bright gleam of setting life shone on her evening hours. No less enraptured than the happy pair, who flourished long in tender bliss, and reared a numerous offspring, lovely like themselves, and good, the grace of all the country round. Defeating oft the labours of the year, the sultry south collects a potent blast. At first the groves are scarcely seen to stir their trembling tops, and a still murmur rises along the soft inclining fields of corn. But as the aerial tempest fuller swells, and in one mighty stream invisible, immense, the whole excited atmosphere, impetuous, rushes o'er the sounding world, strained to the root. The stooping forest pours a rustling shower of yet untimely leaves. High beat. The circling mountains eddy in from the bare wilds, the dissipated storm, and send it in a torrent down the vale. Exposed and naked to its utmost rage through all the sea of harvest roiling round, the billowy plain floats wide, nor can evade, though pliant to the blast, its seizing force. Or whirled in air or into vacant chaff, shook waste, and sometimes too a burst of rain swept from the black horizon, broad, descends in one continuous flood. Still overhead the mingling tempest weaves its gloom, and still the deluge deepens, till the fields around lie sunk and flatted in the sordid wave. Sudden the ditches swell, the meadows swim, red from the hills, innumerable streams, tumultuous roar, and high above its banks the river lift, before whose rushing tide herds, flocks and harvests, cottages and swains roll mingled down, and all that the wind had spared in one wild moment ruined, the big hopes and well-earned treasures of the painful year, fled to some eminence. The husbandman helpless beholds the miserable wreck driving along, his drowning ox at once descending, with his labours scattered round. He sees, and instant o'er his shivering thought comes winter unprovided, and a train of claimant children dear. Ye masters, Jan, be mindful of the rough laborious hand that sinks you soft in elegance and ease. Be mindful of those limbs in russet clad, whose toil to yours is warmth and graceful pride, and oh, be mindful of that sparing board, which covers yours with luxury profuse, makes your glass sparkle and your senses rejoice, nor cruelly demand what the deep rains and all-involving winds have swept away. Hear the rude clamour of the sportsman's joy, the gun fast thundering, and the winded horn would tempt the muse to sing the rural game, how in his mid-career the spaniel struck, stiff by the tainted gale, with open nose, outstretched and finely sensible, draws full, fearful and cautious, on the latent prey, and in the sun the circling covey bask their varied plumes, and watchful every way through the rough stubble turn the secret eye. Caught in the meshy snare, in vain they beat their idle wings, entangled more and more. Not on the surges of the boundless air, though borne triumphant, are they safe. The gun, glanced just and sudden from the fowler's eye, o'ertakes their sounding pinions, and again immediate brings them from the towering wing, dead to the ground, or drives them wide dispersed, wounded, and wheeling, various, down the wind. These are not subjects for the peaceful muse, nor will she stain with such her spotless song. Then, most delighted, when she social sees the whole mixed animal creation round, alive and happy, 'tis not joy to her, the falsely cheerful barbarous game of death, this rage of pleasure, which the restless youth awakes impatient with the gleaming morn, when beasts of prey retire, that all night long, urged by necessity, had ranged the dark, as if their conscious ravage shunned the light, ashamed. Not so the steady tyrant, man, who with the thoughtless insolence of power inflamed, beyond the most infuriate wrath of the worst monster that e'er roamed the waste, for sport alone pursues the cruel chase, amid the beamings of the gentle days. Upbraid, ye ravening tribes, our wanton age, for hunger kindles you, and lawless want, but lavish fed in nature's bounty rolled, to joy at anguish, to delight in blood, is what your horrid bosoms never knew. Poor is the triumph o'er the timid hare, scared from the corn, and now to some lone seat retired. The rushy fen, the ragged furze, stretched o'er the stony heath, the stubble chapped, the thistly lawn, the thick entangled broom of the same friendly hue, the withered fern, the fallow ground laid open to the sun, concoctive, and the nodding sandy bark hung o'er the mazes of the mountain brook. Vain is her best precaution, though she sits concealed with folded ears and sleeping eyes, by nature raised to take the horizon in, and head couched close betwixt her hairy feet, in act to spring away. The scented dew betrays her early labyrinth, and deep in scattered sullen offerings far behind, with every breeze she hears the coming storm, but nearer and more frequent as it loads the sighing gale she springs amazed, and all the savage soul of game is up at once, the pack full opening, various, the shrill horn resounded from the hills, the neighing steed wild for the chase, and the loud hunter's shout o'er a weak harmless creature, all mixed in mad tumult and discordant joy. The stag too, singled from the herd, where long he ranged the branching monarch of the shades, before the tempest drives. At first in speed he sprightly puts his faith, and, roused by fear, gives all his swift aerial soul to flight. Against the breeze he darts, that way the more, to leave the lessening murderous cry behind. Deception short, though fleeter than the winds blown o'er the keen-aired mountain by the north, he bursts the thickets, glances through the glades, and plunges deep into the wildest wood. If slow, yet sure, adhesive to the track, hot, steaming, up behind him come again the inhuman rout, and from the shady depth expel him, circling through his every shift. He sweeps the forest off, and sobbing sees the glades, mild opening to the golden day, where, in kind contrast with his butting friends, he wont to struggle, or his loves enjoy. Oft in the full descending flood he tries to lose the scent and lave his burning sides. Oft seeks the herd, the watchful herd, alarmed, with selfish care avoid a brother's woe. What shall he do? His once so vivid nerves, so full of buoyant spirit, now no more inspire the course, but fainting, breathless toil, sick, seizes on his heart. He stands at bay and puts his last weak refuge in despair. The big round tears run down his dappled face. He groans in anguish, while the growling pack, blood-happy, hang at his fair jutting chest, and mark his beauteous checkered sides with gore. Of this enough. But if the sylvan youth, whose fervent blood boils into violence, must have the chase, behold, despising flight, the roused-up lion, resolute and slow, advancing full on the protended spear and coward band that circling wheel aloof, slunk from the cavern and the troubled wood. See the grim wolf on him his shaggy foe vindictive fix, and let the ruffian die, or, growing horrid as the brindled boar, grins fell destruction to the monster's heart, let the dart lighten from the nervous arm. These Britain knows not. Give, ye Britons, then, your sportive fury, pitiless, to pour loose on the nightly robber of the fold, him from his craggy winding halts unearthed. Let all the thunder of the chase pursue, throw the broad ditch behind you, o'er the hedge, high-bound, resistless, nor the deep morass refuse, but through this shaking wilderness pick your nice way into the perilous flood, bear fearless of the raging instinct full, and as you ride the torrent to the banks, your triumph sounds sonorous, running round from rock to rock in circling echoes tossed. Then scale the mountains to their woody tops, rush down the dangerous steep and o'er the lawn, in fancy swallowing up the space between. Pour all your speed into the rapid game, for happy he who tops the wheeling chase, has every maze evolved and every guile disclosed, who knows the merits of the pack, who saw the villain seized and dying hard without complaint, though by 100 mouths relentless torn. Oh, glorious he beyond his daring peers, when the retreated horn calls them to ghostly halls of grey renown, when woodland honours graced the fox's fur, dependent, decent from the roof, and spread round the drear walls with antic figures fierce, the stag's large front. He then is loudest heard, when the knight staggers with severer toils, with feats Thessalian centaurs never knew, and their repeated wonders shake the dome. But first the fueled chimney blazes wide, the tankards foam, and the strong table groans beneath the smoking sirloin, stretched immense from side to side, in which that with desperate knife they deep incision make, and talk the while of England's glory, never to be defaced, while hence they borrow vigour, or amain into the pasty plunged, at intervals, if stomach keen can intervals allow, relating all the glories of the chase. Then sated hunger bids his brother thirst produce the mighty bowl swelled high with fiery juice, steams liberal round, a potent gale, delicious as the breath of Maya to the love-sick shepherdess, or violets diffused, while soft she hears her panting shepherd stealing to her arms, nor wanting is the brown October, drawn, mature and perfect from his dark retreat of 30 years, and now his honest front flames in the light refulgent, not afraid, e'en with the vineyard's best produce to vie, to cheat the thirsty moments, whilst a while walks his dull round beneath a cloud of smoke, wreathed fragrant from the pipe, or the quick dice and thunder leaping from the box awake the sounded gammon, while romp-loving miss is hauled about, in gallantry robust. At last these puling idlenesses laid aside, frequent and full the dry divan close in firm circle and set, ardent, in for serious drinking. Nor evasion sly, nor sober shift is to the puking wretch indulged apart, but earnest, brimming bowls lave every soul, the table floating round, and pavement faithless to the fuddled foot. Thus, as they swim in mutual swill, the talk, vociferous at once from 20 tongues, reels fast from theme to theme, from horses, hounds, to church or mistress, politics or ghost, in endless mazes, intricate, perplexed. Meantime, with sudden interruption, loud the impatient catch bursts from the joyous heart, that moment touched as every kindred soul, and opening in a full-mouthed cry of joy, the laugh, the slap, the jocund curse go round, while from their slumbers shook the kennelled hounds mix in the music of the day again, as when the tempest that has vexed the deep the dark night long with fainter murmur falls, so gradual sinks their mirth. Their feeble tongues, unable to take up the cumbrous word, lie quite dissolved. Before their maudlin eyes, seen dim and blue, the devil tapers dance, like the sun wading through the misty sky. Then, sliding soft, they drop, confused above. Glasses and bottles, pipes and gazetteers, as if the table e'en itself was drunk, lie a wet, broken scene, and white below is heaped the social slaughter, where astride the lubber power in filthy triumph sits, slumbrous, inclining still from side to side, and steeps them drenched in potent sleep till morn. Perhaps some doctor of tremendous paunch, awful and deep, a black abyss of drink outlives them all. And from his buried flock, retiring, full of rumination sad, laments the weakness of these latter times. But if the rougher sex by this fierce sport is hurried wild, let not such horrid joy e'er stain the bosom of the British fair. Far be the spirit of the chase from them, uncomely courage, unbeseeming skill, to spring the fence, to rein the prancing steed, the cap, the whip, the masculine attire, in which they roughen to the sense, and all the winning softness of their sex is lost. In them 'tis graceful to dissolve it, woe, with every motion, every word to wave, quick o'er the kindling cheek, the ready blush, and from the smallest violence to shrink, unequal, then the loveliest in their fears, and by this silent adulation, soft to their protection, more engaging man. Oh, may their eyes no miserable sight, save weeping lovers, see, a nobler game, through love's enchanting wiles pursued, yet fled, in chase ambiguous. May their tender limbs float in the loose simplicity of dress, and, fashioned all to harmony, alone, know they to see the captivated soul, in rapture, warbled from love-breathing lips, to teach the lute to languish with smooth step, disclosing motion in its every charm, to swim along and swell the mazy dance, to train the foliage o'er the snowy lawn, to guide the pencil, turn the tuneful page, to lend new flavour to the fruitful year, and heighten nature's dainties, in their race to rear their graces into second life, to give society its highest taste, well-ordered home man's best delight to make, and by submissive wisdom, modest skill, with every gentle care alluring art, to raise the virtues, animate the bliss, and sweeten all the toils of human life. This be the female dignity and praise. Ye swains, now hasten to the hazel bank, where down yon dale the widely winding brook falls hoarse from steep to steep, in close array, fit from the thickets and the tangling shrub. Ye virgins, come. For you their latest song the woodlands raise. The clustering nuts for you the lover finds amid the secret shade, and where they burnish on the topmost bough, with active vigour crushes down the tree, or shakes them ripe from the resigning husk, a glossy shower, and of an ardent brown, as are the ringlets of Melinda's hair. Melinda, formed from every grace complete, yet these neglecting, above beauty wise, and far transcending such a vulgar praise. Hence, from the busy, joy-resounding fields, in cheerful error, let us tread the maze of autumn unconfined, and taste, revived, the breath of orchard, big with bending fruit, obedient to the breeze and beating ray. From the deep loaded bough, a mellow shower incessant melts away. The juicy pear lies in a soft profusion scattered round. A various sweetness swells the gentle race, by nature's all-refining hand prepared, of tempered sun and water, earth and air, in ever-changing composition mixed, such, failing frequent through the chiller night, the fragrant stores, the wide projected heaps of apples, which the lusty-handed year innumerous o'er the blushing orchard shakes. A various spirit, fresh, delicious, keen, dwells in their gelid pores, and active points the piercing cider for the thirsty tongue. thy native theme, and boon inspirer too, Philip's, Pomona's bard, the second thou who nobly durst in rhyme unfettered verse, with British freedom sing the British song. How from Silurian vats high sparkling wines foam in transparent floods, some strong, to cheer the wintry revels of the labouring hind, and tasteful some, to cool the summer hours in this glad season, while his sweetest beams the sun sheds equal o'er the meekened day. Oh, lose me in the green delightful walks of Toddington, thy seat, serene and plain, where simple nature reigns, and every view diffusive spreads the pure Dossetian downs in boundless prospect, yonder shagged with wood, here rich with harvest, and there flight with flocks. Meantime the grandeur of thy lofty dome, far splendid, seizes on the ravished eye. New beauties rise with each revolving day, new columns swell, and still the fresh spring finds new plants to quicken and new groves to green. Full of thy genius all, the muse's seat, where in the secret bower and winding walk, for virtuous young and thee they twine the bay. Here, wandering oft, fired with the restless thirst of thy applause, I solitary court the inspiring breeze, and meditate the book of nature ever open, aiming thence, warm, from the heart, to learn the moral song. Here, as I steal along the sunny wall, where autumn basks, with fruit empurpled deep, my pleasing theme continual prompts my thought, presents the downy peach, the shining plum, the ruddy, fragrant nectarine, and dark, beneath his ample leaf, the luscious fig. The vine, too, here her curling tendrils shoots, hangs out her clusters, glowing to the south, and scarcely wishes for a warmer sky. Turn we a moment fancy's rabbit flight to vigorous soils and climes of fair extent, where by the potent sun, elated high, the vineyard swells refulgent on the day, spreads o'er the vale or up the mountain climbs, profuse, and drinks amid the sunny rocks, from cliff to cliff increased, the heightened blaze. Low bend the weighty boughs, the clusters clear, half through the foliage seen, or ardent flame, or shine transparent, while perfection breathes white o'er the turgent film, the living dew. And thus they brighten with exalted juice, touched into flavour by the mingling ray. The rural youth and virgins o'er the field, each fond for each to cull the autumnal prime, exulting rove, and speak the vintage nigh. Then comes the crushing swain, the country floats, and foams unbounded with the mashy flood, that by degrees fermented and refined, around the raised nations pours the cup of joy, the claret smooth, red as the lip we press, in sparkling fancy, while we drain the bowl, the mellow-tasting burgundy, and quick, as is the wit it gives, the gay champagne. Now, by the cool declining year condensed, descends the copious exhalations, checked, as up the middle sky unseen they stole, and roll the double fogs around the hill. No more the mountain, horrid, vast, sublime, who pours a sweep of rivers from his sides, and high between contending kingdoms rears the rocky long division, fills the view with great variety, but in a night of gathering vapour, from the baffled sense sinks dark and dreary. Thence, expanding far, the huge dusk, gradual, swallows up the plain. Vanish the woods, and dim-seen river seems sullen and slow to roll the misty wave. E'en in the height of noon oppressed, the sun sheds weak and blunt his wide refracted ray, whence, glaring oft with many a broadened orb, he frights the nations. Indistinct on earth, seen through the turbid air, beyond the life, objects appear, and, wildered o'er the waste, the shepherd stalks gigantic, till at last, a wreath done around, in deeper circles still, successive closing, sits the general fog unbounded o'er the world, and, mingling thick, a formless grey confusion covers all. As when of old, so sung the Hebrew bard, light uncollected, through the chaos, urged its infant way, nor order yet had drawn his lovely train from out the dubious gloom. These roving mists that constant now begin to smoke along the hilly country, these with weightier rains and melted alpine snows, the mountain cisterns fill, those ample stores of water, scooped among the hollow rocks, whence gush the streams, the ceaseless fountains play, and in their unfailing wealth the rivers draw. Some sages say that where the numerous wave for ever lashes the resounding shore, drilled through the sandy stratum, every way the waters with the sandy stratum rise, amid whose angles, infinitely strained, they joyful leave their jaggy salts behind, and clear and sweeten as they soak along. Nor stops the restless fluid, mounting still, though oft amidst the irriguous vale it springs, but to the mountain, courted by the sand, that leaves it darkling on in faithful maze, far from the parent main. It boils again, fresh into day, and all the glittering hill is bright with spouting rills, and hence this vain amusive dream. Why should the waters love to take so far a journey to the hills, when the sweet valleys offer to their toil inviting quiet and a nearer bed? Or if, by blind ambition led astray, they must aspire, why should they sudden stop among the broken mountains' rushy dells, and ere they gain its highest peak, desert the attractive sand that charmed their course so long? Besides, the hard agglomerating salts, the spoil of ages, would impervious choke their secret channels, or by slow degrees, high as the hills protrude the swelling vales, old ocean, too, sucked through the porous globe, had long ere now forsoken his horrid bed, and brought Deucalion's watery times again. Say then, where lurk the vast eternal springs, that like creating nature lie concealed from mortal eye, yet with their lavish stores refresh the globe and all its joyous tribes? O thou pervading genius, given to man to trace the secrets of the dark abyss, O lay the mountains bare, and wide display their hidden structure to the astonished view. Strip from the branching Alps their piny load, the huge encumbrance of horrific woods from Asian Taurus, from Imaus stretched athwart the roving Tartar's southern bounds. Give opening Haemus to my searching eye, and high Olympus pouring many a stream. Oh, from the sounding summits of the north, the Dofrine hills, through Scandinavia rolls, to farthest Lapland, the frozen main, from lofty Caucasus, far seen by those who in the Caspian and black Euxine toll, from cold Riphaean rocks, which the wild Russ believes the stony girdle of the world, and all the dreadful mountains wrapped in storm, whence wide Siberia draws her lonely floods. Oh, sweep the eternal snows, hung o'er the deep that ever works beneath his sounding base. Bid Atlas, propping heaven as poets feign, his subterranean wonders spread. unveil the miny caverns, blazing on the day of Abyssinia's cloud-compelling cliffs, and of the bending mountains of the moon. O'ertopping all these giant sons of earth, let the dire Andes from the radiant line stretched to the stormy seas that thunder round the southern pole, their hideous deeps unfold. Amazing scene! Behold, the glooms disclose. I see the rivers in their infant beds. Deep, deep I hear them, labouring to get free. I see the leaning strata, artful ranged, the gaping fissures to receive the rains, the melting snows and ever-dripping fogs. Strode bilbulous above, I see the sands, the pebbly gravel next, the layers then of mingled moulds of more retentive earths, the guttered rocks and mazy running clefts, that, while the stealing moisture they transmit, retard its motion and forbid its waste. Beneath the incessant weeping of these drains, I see the rocky siphons, stretched immense, the mighty reservoirs of hardened chalk, of stiff compacted clay, capacious formed, o'erflowing thence, the congregated stores, the crystal treasures of the liquid world. Through the stirred sands a bubbling passage burst, and welling out, around the middle steep, or from the bottoms of the bosomed hills, in pure effusion flow, united thus the exhaling sun, the vapour-burdened air, the gelid mountains, that to rain condensed these vapours in continual current draw, and send them o'er the fair divided earth in bounteous rivers to the deep again. A social commerce hold, and firm support the full adjusted harmony of things. When autumn scatters his departing gleams, warned of approaching winter, gathered, play the swallow people, and tossed wide around o'er the calm sky, in convolution swift the feathered eddy floats, rejoices once ere to their wintry slumbers they retire, in clusters clung beneath the mouldering bank, and where, unpierced by thoughts, the cavern sweats, or rather, into warmer climes conveyed, with other kindred birds of season, there they twitter cheerful till the vernal months invite them welcome back, for, thronging, now, in numerous wings are in commotion all, where the Rhine loses his majestic force in Belgian plains, won from the raging deep, by diligence amazing, and the strong, unconquerable hand of liberty, the stork assembly meets, for many a day. Consulting deep and various, ere they take their arduous voyage through the liquid sky, and now their route designed, their leaders chose, their tribes adjusted, cleaned their vigorous wings, and many a circle, many a short essay, wheeled round and round in congregation full, the figured flight ascends, and, riding high the aerial billows, mixes with the clouds, or where the northern ocean in vast whirls boils round the naked melancholy isles of farthest Thule, and the Atlantic surge pours in among the stormy Hebrides. Who can recount what transmigrations there are annual made, what nations come and go, and how the living clouds on clouds arise, infinite wings, till all the plume dark air and rude resounding shore are one wild cry. Here the plain harmless native his small flock, and herd diminutive of many hues, tend on the little island's verdant swell, this shepherd's sea-girt rein, or to the rocks dire clinging gathers his ovarious food, or sweeps the fishy shore, or treasures up the plumage, rising full to form the bed of luxury. And here awhile the muse, high hovering o'er the broad cerulean scene, sees Caledonia, in romantic view, her airy mountains from the waving main, invested with a keen diffusive sky, breathing the soul acute, her forests huge, incult, robust and tall, by nature's hand planted of old, her azure lakes between, poured out extensive and of watery wealth, full, winding deep and green, her fertile vales, with many a cool, translucent, brimming flood, washed lovely from the Tweed, pure parent stream whose pastoral banks first heard my Doric reed, with sylvan Jed, thy tributary brook, to where the north inflated tempest foams o'er Orcas or Bitubium's highest peak. Nurse of a people, in misfortune's school trained up to hardy deeds, soon visited by learning, when before the Gothic rage she took her western flight, a manly race of unsubmitting spirit, wise and brave, who still, through bleeding ages, struggled hard, as well unhappy Wallace can attest, great patriot hero, ill-requited chief. To hold a generous, undiminished state, too much in vain, hence of unequal bounds, impatient, and by tempting glory, born over every land, for every land their life has flowed profuse, their piercing genius planned, and swelled the pomp of peace their faithful toil, as from their own clear north, in radiant streams, bright over Europe, bursts the boreal morn. Oh, is there not some patriot, in whose power that best, that godlike luxury is placed, of blessing thousands, thousands yet unborn, through late posterity, some large of soul to cheer dejected industry, to give a double harvest to the pining swain, and teach the labouring hand the sweets of toil. How by the finest art the native robe to weave, how white as Hyperborean snow, to form the lucid lawn with venturous oar, how to dash wide the billow, nor look on shamefully passive while Batavian fleets defraud us of the glittering finny swarms that heave our friths and crowd upon our shores. How all enlivening trade to rouse and wing the prosperous sail from every growing port uninjured round the sea-encircled globe, and thus, in soul united as in name, bid Britain reign the mistress of the deep. Yet there are such, and full on thee, Argyle, her hope, her stay, her darling, and her boast, from her first patriots and her heroes sprung. Thy fond imploring country turns her eye, in thee, with all a mother's triumph, sees her every virtue, every grace combined, her genius, wisdom, her engaging turn, her pride of honour and her courage tried, calm and intrepid, in the very throat of sulphurous war, on Tenier's dreadful field. Nor less the palm of peace enwreaths thy brow, for, powerful as thy sword, from thy rich tongue persuasion flows, and wins the high debate, while mixed in thee combine the charm of youth, the force of manhood, and the depth of age. Thee, Forbes, too, whom every worth attends, as truth sincere, as weeping friendship kind, thee, truly generous, and in silence great, thy country feels through her reviving arts, planned by thy wisdom, by thy soul informed, and seldom has she known a friend like thee. But see the fading, many-coloured woods, shade deepening over shade, the country round imbrown, a crowded umbrage, dusk and dun of every hue, from wan declining green to sooty dark. These now the lonesome muse, low whispering, lead into their leaf-strewn walks, and give the season in its latest view. Meantime, light shadowing oil, a sober calm, fleeces unbounded ether, whose least wave stands tremulous, uncertain where to turn the gentle current, while illumined wide the dewy-skirted clouds imbibe the sun, and through their lucid veil his softened force shed o'er the peasant world. There is the time for those whom wisdom and whom nature charm, to steal themselves from the degenerate crowd, and soar above this little scene of things, to tread low-thoughted vice beneath their feet, to soothe the throbbing passions into peace, and woo lone quiet in her silent walks. Thus, solitary and in pensive guise, oft let me wander o'er the russet mead, and through the saddened grove where scarce is heard one dying strain to cheer the woodman's toil. Haply some widowed songster pours his plaint far in faint warblings through the tawny copse, while congregated thrushes, linnets, larks, and each wild throat whose artless strains so late swelled all the music of the swarming shades, robbed of their tuneful souls, now shivering sit on the dead tree, a dull, despondent flock, with not a brightness waving o'er their plumes, and naught save chattering discord in their note. Oh, let not, aimed from some inhuman eye, the gun the music of the coming year destroy, and harmless, unsuspecting harm lay the weak tribes, the miserable prey, in mingled murder, fluttering to the ground. The pale descending year, yet pleasing still, a gentler mood inspires, for now the leaf incessant rustles from the mournful grove, oft startling such as, studious, walk below and slowly circles through the waving air. But should a quicker breeze amid the boughs sob o'er the sky, the leafy deluge streams, till choked and matted with the dreary shower the forest walks, at every rising gale, roll wide the withered waste, and whistle bleak. Fled is the blasted verdure of the field, and shrunk into their beds the flowery race their sunny robes resign. E'en what remained of stronger fruits falls from the naked tree, and woods, fields, gardens, orchards, all around. The desolated prospect thrills the soul. He comes. In every breeze the power of philosophic melancholy comes. His near approach, the sudden starting tear, the glowing cheek, the mild dejected air, the softened feature and the beating heart, pierced deep with many a virtuous pang, declare. O'er all the soul his sacred influence breathes, inflames imagination, through the breast infuses every tenderness, and far beyond dim earth exalts the swelling thought. 10,000 fleet ideas, such as never mingled with the vulgar dream, crowd fast into the mind's creative eye, as fast the correspondent passions rise, as varied and as high, devotion raised to rapture and divine astonishment, the love of nature unconfined, and chief of human race, the large, ambitious wish to make them blessed, the sigh for suffering worth lost in obscurity, the noble scorn of tyrant pride, the fearless great resolve, the wonder which the dying patriot draws, inspiring glory through remotest times, the awakened throb for virtue and for fame, the sympathies of love and friendship dear, with all the social offspring of the heart. Oh, bear me then to vast embowering shades, to twilight groves and visionary vales, to weeping grottos and prophetic glooms, where angel forms athwart the solemn dusk tremendous sweep, or seem to sweep along, and voices more than human through the void deep resounding. Seize the enthusiastic ear. Or is this gloom too much? Then lead, ye powers, that o'er the garden and the rural seat preside, which, shining through the cheerful hand in countless numbers, blessed Britannia sees. Oh, lead me to the wide extended walks, the fair majestic paradise of Stowe. Not Persian Cyrus on Ionia's shore e'er saw such sylvan scenes. such various art by genius fired, such ardent genius tamed by cool judicious art, that in the strife all beauteous nature fears to be outdone. And there, O pit, thy country's early boast, there let me sit beneath the sheltered slopes, or in that temple where in future times thou shalt merit a distinguished name, and with thy converse blessed catch the last smiles of autumn beaming o'er the yellow woods, where there with thee the enchanted round I walk. The regulated, wild, gay fancy then will tread in thought the groves of Attic land, will from thy standard taste refine her own, correct her pencil to the purest truth of nature, or the unimpassioned shades forsaking, raise it to the human mind, or if hereafter she with juster hand shall draw the tragic scene, instruct her thou to mark the various movements of the heart, what every decent character requires and every passion speaks. O, through her strain breathe thy pathetic eloquence that moulds the attentive senate, charms, persuades, exalts, of honest zeal the indignant lightning throws, and shakes corruption on her venal throne, while thus we walk, and through Elysian vales delighted rove. Perhaps such a sigh escapes. What pity, Cobham, thou that verdant files of ordered trees should hear in glorious range, instead of squadrons flaming o'er the field and long embattled hosts, when the proud foe, the faithless, vain disturber of mankind, insulting Gaul, had roused the world to war. When keen once more within the bounds to press those polished robbers, those ambitious slaves, the British youth would hail thy wise command, the tempered ardour and thy veteran skill, the western sun withdraws the shortened day, and humid evening, playing o'er the sky in her chill progress to the ground condensed, the vapours throws, where creeping waters ooze, where marshes stagnate, and where rivers run wild, cluster the rolling fogs and swim along the dusky mantled lawn. Meanwhile the moon, full orbed and breaking through the scattered clouds, shows her broad visage in the crimsoned east, turned to the sun direct her spotted disk, where mountains rise, umbrageous dales descend, and caverns deep as optic tube descries. A smaller earth gives us his blaze again, void of its flame, and sheds a softer day. Now through the passing cloud she seems to stoop, now up the pure cerulean ride sublime. Wide the pale deluge floats, and streaming mild o'er the skied mountain to the shadowy vale, while rocks and floods reflect the quivering stream. The whole air whitens with a boundless tide of silver radiance, trembling round the world. But when half blotted from the sky, her light, fainting, permits the starry fires to burn with keener lustre through the depths of heaven. Or near extinct her deadened orb appears, and scarce appears of sickly beamless white. Oft in this season, silent from the north, a blaze of meteors shoots, in sweeping first the lower skies. They all at once converge high to the crown of heaven, and all at once, relapsing quick, as quickly reascend and mix and thwart, extinguish and renew, all ether coursing in a maze of light. From look to look, contagious through the crowd, the panic runs, and into wondrous shapes the appearance throws, armies in meet array, thronged with aerial spears and steeds of fire, till the long lines of full extended war in bleeding fight commixed, the sanguine flood rolls a blood's slaughter o'er the plains of heaven. And thus they scan the visionary scene, on all sides swell the superstitious din, incontinent, and busy frenzy talks of blood and battle, cities overturned, and late at night in swallowing earthquakes sunk, or hideous, wrapped in fierce ascending flame, of sallow famine, inundation, storm, of pestilence, and every great distress, empires subversed, when ruling fate has struck the unalterable hour, e'en nature's self is deemed to totter on the brink of time. Not so the man of philosophic eye and inspect sage. The waving brightness he curious surveys, inquisitive to know the causes and materials, yet unfixed, of this appearance beautiful and new. Now, black and deep, the night begins to fall. A shade immense, sunk in the quenching doom, magnificent and vast, are heaven and earth. Order confounded lies, all beauty void, distinction lost, and gay variety one universal blot, such the fair power of light to kindle and create the whole. Drear is the state of the benighted wretch, who then, bewildered, wanders through the dark, full of pale fancies, and chimeras huge, nor visited by one directive ray, from cottage streaming, or from airy hall, perhaps impatient as he stumbles on, struck from the root of slimy rushes, blue the wildfire scatters round, or scattered trails, a length of flame deceitful o'er the moss, whither decoyed by the fantastic blaze, now lost and now renewed, he sinks absorbed, rider and horse, amid the miry gulf, while still from day to day his pining wife and plaintive children his return await, in wild conjecture lost. At other times, sent by the better genius of the night, innocuous, gleaming on the horse's mane, the meteor sits, and shows the narrow path that winding leads through pits of death, or else instructs him how to take the dangerous ford. The lengthened night elapsed, the morning shines, serene in all her dewy beauty bright, unfolding fair the last autumnal day. And now the mounting sun dispels the fog. The rigid hoarfrost melts before his beam, and hung on every spray, on every blade of grass, the myriad dewdrops twinkle round. Ah, see where, robbed and murdered in that pit, lies the still heaving hive, at evening snatched beneath the cloud of guilt concealing night, and fixed o'er sulphur, while, not dreaming ill, the happy people in their waxen cells sat tending public cares and planning schemes of temperance for winter poor, rejoiced to mark, full flowing round their copious stores. Sudden the dark oppressive steam ascends, and, used to milder scents, the tender race by thousands tumble from their honeyed domes, convolved and agonizing in the dust. And was it then this for you roamed the spring, intent from flower to flower? For this you toiled ceaseless the burning summer heats away? For this in autumn searched the blooming waste, nor lost one sunny gleam? For this sad fate? O man, tyrannic lord, how long shall prostrate nature groan beneath your rage, awaiting renovation, when obliged must you destroy? Of their ambrosial food can you not borrow, and in just return afford them shelter from their wintry winds? Or, as the sharper year pinches, with their own again regale them on some smiling day? See where the stony bottom of their town looks desolate and wild, with here and there a helpless number, who the ruined state survive, lamenting weak, casting out the death. Thus a proud city, populous and rich, full of the works of peace and high in joy, at theatre or feast, or sunk in sleep, as late Palermo was thy freight, is seized by some dread earthquake, and convulsive hurled, sheer from the black foundation, stench involved, into a gulf of blue sulphurous flame. Hence every harsher sight. From now the day, o'er heaven and earth diffused, grows warm and high. Infinite splendour, wide investing all. How still the breeze, save what the filmy thread of dew evaporate brushes from the plain. How clear the cloudless sky. How deeply tinged with a peculiar blue the ethereal arch. How swelled immense, amid whose azure throned this radiant sun. How gay, how calm below the gilded earth, the harvest treasures all now gathered in, beyond the rage of storms, sure to the swain, the circling fence shut up, and instant winter's utmost rage defied, while loose to festive joy the country round laughs with the loud sincerity of mirth. Shook to the wind their cares, the toil-strung youth, by the quick sense of music taught alone, leaps widely graceful in the lively dance, her every charm abroad, the village toast, young buxom, warm, in native beauty rich, darts not unmeaning looks, and which her eye points an improving smile, with double force the cudgel rattles and the wrestler twines. Age too shines out, and garrulous recounts the feats of youth. Thus they rejoice, nor think that with tomorrow's sun their annual toil begins again the never-ceasing round. Oh, knew he but his happiness, of men the happiest he, who far from public rage, deep in the vale with a choice few retired, drinks the pure pleasures of the rural life. What though the dome be wanting, whose proud gate each morning vomits out the sneaking crowd of flatterers false, and in their turn abused? Vile intercourse! What though the glittering robe of every hue reflected light can give, or floating loose or stiff with mazy gold, the pride and gaze of fools oppress him not? What though from utmost land and sea pervade, for him each rarer tributary life bleeds not, and his insatiate table heaps with luxury and death? What though his bowl flames not with costly juice, nor sunk in beds, oft of gay care, he tosses out the night, or melts the thoughtless hours in idle state? What though he knows not those fantastic joys that still amuse the wanton, still deceive a face of pleasure, but a heart of pain, their hollow moments undelighted all? Sure, peace is his, a solid life, estranged to disappointment and fallacious hope, rich in content, in nature's bounty rich, in herbs and fruits, whatever greens the spring, when heaven descends in showers or bends the bough, when summer reddens and when autumn beams, or in the wintry glebe whatever lies concealed, and fattens with the richest sap, these are not wanting, nor the milky drove, luxuriant, spread o'er all the lowing vale, nor bleating mountains, nor the chide of streams and hum of bees, inviting sleep sincere into the guiltless breast, beneath the shade, or thrown at large amid the fragrant hay, nor aught besides of prospect, grove or song, dim grottos, gleaming lakes and fountain clear. Here too dwells simple truth, plain innocence, unsullied beauty, sound unbroken youth. Patient of labour, with a little pleased, health ever blooming, unambitioned toil, calm contemplation and poetic ease. Let others brave the flood in quest of gain, and beat for joyless months the gloomy wave. Let such as deem it glory to destroy rush into blood, the sack of cities seek, unpierced, exulting in the widow's wail, the virgin's shriek, and infant's trembling cry. Let some, far distant from their native soil, urged or by want or hardened avarice, find other lands beneath another sun. Let this through cities work his eager way, by legal outrage and established guile, the social sense extinct, and that ferment mad into tumult, the seditious herd, or melt them down to slavery. Let these ensnared the wretch in the toils of law, fomenting discord and perplexing right, an iron race, and those of fairer front, but equal in humanity, in courts, delusive pomp and dark cabals, delight, wreathe the deep bow diffuse the lying smile, and tread the weary labyrinth of state, while he, from all the stormy passions free that restless men involve, hears, and but hears, at distance safe, the human tempest roar, wrapped close in conscious peace, the fall of kings, the rage of nations, and the crush of states. Move not the man who from the world escaped, in still retreats and flowery solitudes, to nature's voice attends from month to month, and day to day, through the revolving year. Admiring, sees her in her every shape, feels all her sweet emotions at his heart, takes what she liberal gives, nor thinks of more. He, when young spring protrudes the bursting germs, marks the first bud, and sucks the healthful gale into his freshened soul. Her genial owls he full enjoys, and not a beauty blows, and not an opening blossom breathes in vain. In summer he, beneath the living shade, such as o'er frigid Tempe wont to wave, or Haemus cool, reads what the muse of these, perhaps, has in immortal numbers sung, or what she dictates, writes, and, oft an eye shot round, rejoices in the vigorous year. When autumn's yellow lustre gilds the world, and tempts the sickled swain into the field, seized by the general joy, his heart distends with gentle throes, and through the tepid gleams, deep musing, then he best exerts his song. E'en winter, wild to him, is full of bliss. The mighty tempest and the hoary waste, abrupt and deep, stretched o'er the buried earth, awake to solemn thought. At night the skies, disclosed and kindled by refining frost, pour every lustre on the exalted eye. A friend, a book, the stealing hours secure, and mark them down for wisdom. With swift wing, o'er land and sea, imagination roams, or truth, divinely breaking on his mind, elates his being, and unfolds his powers. Or in his breast heroic virtue burns. The touch of kindred too, and love he feels, the modest eye whose beams on his alone ecstatic shine. The little, strong embrace of prattling children twined around his neck, and emulous to please him, calling forth the fond parental soul. Nor purpose, gay, amusement, dance, or song he sternly scorns, for happiness and true philosophy are on the social, still, and smiling kind. This is the life which those who fret in guilt and guilty cities never knew, the life led by primeval ages, uncorrupt, when angels dwelt, and God himself with man. O nature, all-sufficient, over all, enrich me with the knowledge of thy works, snatch me to heaven, thy rolling wonders here, world beyond world, in infinite extent, profusely scattered o'er the blue immense. Show me their motions, periods, and their laws, give me to scan. Through the disclosing deep light my blind way, the mineral strata there, thrust, blooming, thence the vegetable world, or that the rising system, more complex, of animals, and higher still the mind, the varied scene of quick compounded thought, and where the mixing passioned, endless shift, these ever open to my ravished eyes,
a search the flight of time can ne'er exalt. But if to that unequal, if the blood in sluggish streams about my heart forbid that pest ambition, under closing shades, inglorious, lay me down by thy lowly brook, and whisper to my dreams, from thee begin, dwell all on thee, with thee conclude my song, and let me never, never stray from thee.